Hey there, welcome back to Ask Amy. I have a question today from screenwriter Kika. So she says, I've listened to your podcast about how you write. This was an episode from, I think, over the summer, maybe spring last year. She says, actually, I think it was 2 years ago. She says, I'm a screenwriter and have been working on this project for a number of years. When I wrote this screenplay 3 years ago, I remember guarding intrusive thoughts during the entire time I was writing to a contest deadline and decided on purpose that as long as I write, I will choose to think that it's great writing. That got me to complete the screenplay, and indeed, I submitted it to numerous contests. Yet all the feedback came back and basically said, not good. I also then hired a writing coach that said the story just doesn't work. What my brain learned from this is that I was probably too optimistic, delusional perhaps, about my own writing, and that now I should be very careful when I write because what I thought was good is not good at all. And so ever since, I find myself for months on end procrastinating and escaping because I fear that I will write something that my brain will deem not good. It puts a tremendous amount of pressure on me to get it right, and yet getting it right is just an opinion, it's just a thought. And while that's so, if I want to sell my writing work, it needs to be deemed good for the marketplace for those who are the decision makers. It's not just a subjective thing. So she says, if the machine that we work with constantly generates thoughts, and 99% of the time they are geared towards self-criticism and toward running back to the cave, how, when we write, can we know if our opinion of something we wrote is truly good or bad, if the same machine that's supposed to generate great ideas is also the one that shoots down every idea? So thank you, Kika, for sending this question. I love it because it lets us, there's a lot in here that we get to kind of unpack and look at a little bit. Okay, where to start? So you say that what you learned from the negative feedback that you received, you say what my brain learned from this is that I was probably too optimistic, delusional perhaps, about my own writing, and that now I should be very careful when I write because what I thought was good is not so good at all. So just something I want to say about that. When you say, Kika, what I thought was good was not so good at all, I want you to really look at that because what you're saying you did was, and this is how I'm hearing it anyway, is basically say, okay, I'm turning off common sense. I'm not, I'm sort of like, it sounds like you kind of just went into this zone where you said, I decided on purpose that as long as I write, I will choose to think that it's great writing. So almost, and you see for yourself if this is accurate or resonates, but almost in this, like, this is great writing. It's really good. I'm just going to keep doing it. It's so good. That's just more repetitive thinking. That, I wouldn't use the word delusional, but it's very forced. So when you say later, oh, well, now I concluded that I can't trust my own opinions, that wasn't really your opinion. Like, that wasn't your gut. That wasn't your intuition or your common sense telling you about the quality of your writing. It was a habitual thought that you just kept repeating over and over and over and tried to believe. A little bit delusional but that was the nature of what you were doing, right? You're not delusional, but it was like trying to make something fit to get you through. So that's what I'm hearing in this. And I point that out to start. This is not even the most important part of what I want to say about your question, but I just want to pull that out and look at that because a lot of this seems to be rooted in, oh, now I can't trust myself. That's kind of your big question, right? Now I can't trust myself because I thought that was good, and then I got all this negative feedback, so that wasn't good at all. But I don't know, you see what you think, but it sounds like it wasn't a natural, deep, like, wow, this feels good to me. This screenplay feels amazing. It just came through me. It feels authentic. It feels great. It sounds like what you're describing is something very different, where it's like, it's good, it's good, it's good. Just keep writing. Don't worry, it's good. You're almost blind to what was wanting to come through and inform you. So maybe you can trust a little bit more than you think you can, because it's not like you deeply felt this was amazing work and then other people disagreed. You just told yourself it was. And again, you check that. This is just how I'm hearing it. So you check that with your experience to see if that lands at all, if that resonates. So I love this last little question you ask when you say, when we write, how, and by the way, when this is when we do anything, create anything, right? How can we know if our opinion of something that we wrote or created is truly good or bad if the machine that's supposed to generate great ideas, so our brain, is the same one that shoots down every idea? So this is really the crux of it, Kika. And just in that question, you're stating perfectly the problem with trying to get all of our information from a mind. If we think that the good ideas come from our mind and we have to go in there somehow and that's going to be what generates them, but then we also notice that our mind shoots us down all the time, and that sometimes our mind will repeat all the time, this is great writing, it's great writing, and that seems somewhat helpful for a certain purpose. But then again, that same mind then says, no, you're horrible, I can't trust anything. Like, yes, it's completely confusing. It's completely all over the place. There's nothing in there that makes any sense that you can trust and nail down, because it's always changing and it's always conflicting. But that's just because that's thought. That is the nature of thought. That is the nature of a little personal mind, is it conflicts itself all over the place. It contradicts itself constantly. It is incredibly critical and negative, and then also can boost us up the next minute later. It's all over the place. So the short answer to that is, you don't trust that. I mean, again, I don't want to make it sound like don't trust, like it's a scary thing, like you need to shun it or anything. But this is the nature of thought. It isn't all that trustworthy. It's constantly changing by our mood, by the weather, by everything, right? It's always in flux. So it's not a source of any kind of true knowledge. Now, when you say the machine that generates these ideas is the same one that criticizes them, I would disagree with that in a sense. Now, we have a brain and our brain creates everything. So in the bigger sense, maybe. But as a creator, as an artist, you've had moments, no doubt, of really feeling like something is coming through you. In those moments, yes, I don't know how it feels. It might feel like there's a lot of brain power happening. Sometimes it doesn't feel like there's a lot of brain power behind it at all. It just is like flowing through you. But I want you to just look at this for yourself and get curious. Does it really feel in those moments like that is coming from the machine? Like that, when it's just pouring through you and it just, you're just creating, Kika's not even in the room, this is just showing up. Those are typically moments where it's like, no, this isn't me doing anything here. And this isn't my brain, it doesn't feel like it's your knowledge or your intellect that's doing it. It almost feels like it's coming from somewhere bigger than all of that, beyond all of that. See if you can get a feel for that feeling and compare and contrast that with the feeling of a critical mind. Super repetitive, super circular, again, all over the place. That's different. And I don't say this to kind of make everything seem like it's ultimately very different, but just to sort of illustrate this point, like, it's not the same. It's not the same. Just in a practical sense, it's not the same. Fresh ideas and insight and writing and art and anything that we create, anything in any area of life, they just show up. They just show up and they move through us. Now, critical thoughts just show up as well. You don't decide to think critically. You don't do that. But again, just see if you can feel like a little bit of a difference. There's a survival, this is what you're talking about, this survival focused brain, right? That yes, it wants to just keep us comfortable and safe and not venture out and not enter the contests and criticize us and stuff. That's just a survival focused brain. That is just so little compared to this bigger source of all things, of all creation. You start to feel a difference. You can feel the difference. So I think of this as like we are just lived. Ideas show up, they move through us, we're just lived. And then we have a brain, like you're talking about, a mind that is just a label maker, that wants to call everything good or bad. It wants to call you good or bad. It wants to tell you what's going to happen in the future. But that's just the label maker. It's a very relatively rudimentary, simple little machine. It's just the label maker. You don't trust the label maker. Again, the label maker will tell you one thing at noon and another thing by 3 p.m. You come to see, okay, I'm not going to trust the label maker. It'll spit out its labels. It'll say good, bad, good enough, bad enough, do it, don't do it, power through, just go back to bed. Like, it'll do all that stuff it's running you through right now. But you notice that. You feel the tight feeling of it, the limited feeling of it, and you see, oh, this is a brain. This is my brain doing this. It has nothing to do with what I'm creating. It has nothing to do with me. It has nothing to do with life. And there's this weird way that's so hard to explain, but it's like your mind could be talking about whatever repetitive stuff it's talking about, and you're just there doing what you're doing. Like, you can go back to writing. You're procrastinating, you say, because you're afraid of a thought. I get it. Humans do that. We don't like a thought. It feels true, but it's just a thought. It's just a survival focused brain that's going to repeat some stuff. If you cannot look toward your mind for what's good or bad, you will know, because you're going to be in this bigger space where stuff's just coming through. And it kind of, when I say you'll know, it doesn't mean you're going to instantly know, oh wow, what I'm writing is good or what I'm writing is bad. I sure as heck don't know that. I almost always think it's bad. But it kind of doesn't matter. Again, you kind of come to see, wow, that's just this. That's just the machine over here spitting out labels, but something bigger and deeper is moving through me, and I'm just putting it on paper, and I'm just going to do it. And not in a blind way like you did with the last one, but in an alive way, in an expansive way where you're feeling your way through. It doesn't really matter if it's good or bad. You go back and change the parts that are bad, but don't be blind to it like you were before. And also don't, you see how there are kind of two extremes. You were either like, it's good, it's good, it's good, which is kind of a lie, or this is telling you it's horrible, and you're listening to it. Either way, it's just belief. It's just thought, and thoughts aren't true in that way. You don't want to trust that. You want to just step through life and let the creation happen, and step through life more and let the creation happen more. And somehow in that process, we just kind of come to see, you just get a sense of it's good, it's bad, you get feedback just like you've been doing. But you don't let the repetitive thing be the judge of that. I hope that makes some sense. Really what I want you to see, Kika, is it's so simple and we just make it so hard. It's no different than a little kid showing up to play with Play-Doh or build a sandcastle or something. You just show up and play in your craft. And it's not really a question of good or bad. And when that's less on our minds and we're less listening to all the judgment, you get a deeper sense of good or bad. And it doesn't necessarily sound like good or bad, but it might be like, oh, I think I'm going to rework this part. I think I'm going to change this part. I think I need a day off. I think I'm going to just write some more, even if it's bad, and see what happens. You're lived through it. It's not your mind trying to figure it out in the process. Please let me know. I have no idea if this really helped or made any sense. So please let me know. It's definitely one of those that feels like it makes sense to me, but the words aren't really capturing it. So let me know what you hear in that. Again, I think this is super helpful for anybody who creates stuff, whether you're a writer or artist or a mom or a chef or whatever you are. So thank you for sending it. And send your questions to AskAmy at thelittleschoolbigchange.com. And I'll see everyone back here next Monday. Thanks, everyone. Have a great week.